We're here with Gene Heilman today to talk about our involvement with the Conference Disaster Response Program. So, Gene, first let's start off in what's your position with the program?
I'm the Rio, Texas Conference Disaster Response Coordinator. Every conference, as per the discipline, the bishop appoints a coordinator, and that's the role that I play here.
And I understand we've got a couple of other people involved with positions on that program.
St. Matthew's probably has more involvement than any other church in the conference in terms of leadership, especially. Larry Etter has been involved in leadership for a long time. Right now he's serving as the logistics coordinator, so he's responsible for all of our equipment and that type of thing. Then Les Barrow is the district coordinator. In addition to the conference coordinator, every district has a district coordinator, and Les plays that role for Los Misiones district.
How did you start with the program? You mentioned since the beginning.
My involvement in disaster response probably goes back to our work during Katrina.
Yes.
If you recall, the church adopted apartment complex. Al Cargan was the kingpin in all of that, and I got involved in that. And as I looked around, it looked to me like the United Methodist Church wasn't involved very much in Katrina. And so I was interested in getting involved and getting the church involved. It turns out, by the way, that they were much more involved than I knew they were. But nonetheless, that still sort of pushed me in. And so I took the first ERT class that was offered in Texas. ERT is Early Response Team Training. And these are the groups that go out. They help clean up more than anything else, but they do a number of things. So I took the first one of those was offered in Texas, was actually in Texas Conference at Woodlands. And then we offered one here in San Antonio, or UMCOR actually does that training. And so I went to that, but there were a lot of other people involved in that class. In fact, St. Matthew's had about half the people in that particular class. So that got me started, and we actually deployed. The St. Matthew's team was the first team to deploy ERT teams. This was a new UMCOR program, and we went to Eagle Pass after the tornado out there. And that was the first time that an ERT class had been deployed in the what was then Southwest Texas Conference. But we've been involved ever since. The ERT training is a full day, and we encourage people to do it. I mean, we have a lot of people in the church that are trained, but the lifespan of an ERT person is fairly short because most of us are pretty old when we get trained, and so by the time we do it a few years, it's time to hang up the boots. Yeah. But that class talks about the what I call Disaster 101. It's sort of the language of disaster.
Oh, okay.
How do we go about it? Who else is involved in disaster? What does UMCOR do in disaster? They're very important. And then it talks a lot about safety, because there's a lot of ways to get hurt, and as you could imagine when you're out there. And then we talk also about, okay, how do you do things? How is the proper way to put a tarp on a roof? If you had a flood, what's the proper way to cut off the drywall? What do you do? How high? All those kinds of things. And so that's sort of the different aspects of that training.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, one of the other parts of the disaster training is that we tell people you do not respond to a disaster without an invitation. There's a tendency, there's a big bunch of people, when they hear about a disaster, they hop in the car and they go. And that is not effective response. That's why it's important to be trained, it's important to be a part of a group, and it's important to have a contact before you get there so that they know you're coming, they know how to put you to work.
If somebody wanted to get involved here at St. Matthew's, What do they do? Do they contact you, or is there some other
I would
way?
suggest contacting Les. He's a district coordinator.
That's right.
And,
You don't want to overstep his
no, don't want to
bounds, do
step
you?
on his toes.
Well, this has really been impressive. I had no idea, even though I've been somewhat involved from the sidelines, that the program was like this. Gene, we really admire you for your involvement and enthusiasm about it and the way you've taken charge of it. And apparently the conference is too. So we thank you a lot for
Thank
that.
you very much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work you've done.